We all have an appreciation for beautiful things, whether they're buildings, places, or people. When we make vacation plans, many of us travel to destinations that feature beautiful scenery. This video isn't about common travel destinations, though. Instead, we're going to show you some of the world's most incredible and amazing places. You'll be stunned that they really exist. If you saw the artistic creation known as desert breath in Egypt while you were flying overhead, you could be forgiven for thinking you'd seen a strange alien landscape. It's nothing of the sort, though. It's a colossal work of art, which has been etched into the sand. Completed in 1997, Desert Breath is a geometrically pleasing array of sand cones and circular pits, arranged in a perfectly symmetrical spiral. There are 89 cones and pits in total, arranged around a vast central pit that was once filled with water. The artists who created Desert Breath intended for the wind and weather to slowly erode their work, and that's happening gradually over the years, but it's still a spectacular sight. One day, years from now, the sand will blow away, and there won't be a single trace of Desert Breath left. So catch it while you can. Egypt is full of ancient wonders, but this one belongs to the modern age. Galleta Meadows estate in Borrego Springs, California, has been described as a kind of steel Jurassic Park. If you don't know you're about to see it when you're driving through the desert on the SoCa S3 highway, it can be an alarming thing to come across. Prehistoric beasts suddenly begin to loom out of the plains of the desert, and it takes a moment for you to realize that they're only sculptures. Included in the array of statues are a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a saber-toothed tiger. There's also an elephant and 2 gigantic steel scorpions. The estate is the work of steelwork artist Ricardo Brecida, who has scattered his sculptures across the Anza Borrego Desert outside San Diego. There are more than 130 statues here, which are so detailed that the 10-foot-high elephants even have curly eyelashes. The location of the estate is a little challenging to find, but it's worth going out of your way to see if you have the opportunity. Staying in California for a moment, there's a place you simply have to see if you're a follower of the Christian faith. Known simply as the Desert Christ Park, this is a derelict Christian theme park close to Joshua Tree. Everything you'll find here was dreamed up by Reverend Eddie Garver, who intended his 1950s creation to be a beacon of hope and peace. The first statue placed here was a 10-foot-tall effigy of Christ, which weighs 5 tons and was erected in Easter Sunday in 1951. The Reverend worked on the site with a sculptor named Frank Antone Martin, who created a further 35 statues before he passed away in 1961. One piece dominates the landscape more than any other, and that's a 125-ton bas-relief rendition of the Last Supper, which stands 3 stories tall and has a viewing platform directly behind the head of Jesus, which is ideal for photo opportunities. Sadly, an earthquake in 1992 damaged many of the sculptures, and a charity foundation is currently trying to raise funds for much-needed restoration work. What's your favorite fruit? If your answer was banana, we have some excellent news for you. There's a whole museum dedicated to the bendy yellow treat, and it's yet another place you can visit while you're in California. The International Banana Museum was founded in Mecca in 1976 by banana enthusiast and former manufacturing company CEO Ken Bannister. Charmingly, he says he simply loves the fruit because it's shaped like a smile. He even changed his second name to Bananister after he opened the museum. There are more than 17,000 banana-themed exhibits at the museum, including a banana with gold sequins that was gifted to the eccentric entrepreneur by Michael Jackson. If you want to get involved with the museum, you can join for $15 and rise through the rankings of the Banana Society by donating items to the museum for exhibitions. Members of the club include Jay Leno and former President of the United States of America, Ronald Reagan. We promise this video isn't just about California, but we can't leave the Sunshine State until we've shown you one more incredible location. And that's the Crowley Lake Columns in Mono County. If you knew nothing about the location, you would presume that the rocks here were carved by human hands. But the intricate columns and waves of stone were actually created by boiling lava more than 700,000 years ago following a volcanic eruption. The land was once a desert, but the desert was carpeted in ash after the volcano blew its top, and the lava turned the ash to stone. The eerie current appearance of the stone columns can be put down to natural erosion taking place over thousands of years. Technically speaking, the columns should be called degassing pipes, which is a reference to how they were formed. People who've been to the location and seen it with their own eyes compare the experience to walking through a stone forest. If you speak a little Spanish, you'll know that Rio Tinto translates as Red River, and that's the aptly descriptive name given to this body of water in Andalusia, Spain. Humans have been mining the river for its metals and minerals for more than 5,000 years, and in the process, they've given the water its distinctive red shade. Rio Tinto has been and still is a rich source of gold, silver, and copper. Although it's hard to say that the Bronze Age started in any particular location on Earth, some of the activities we associate with our Bronze Age ancestors began here before they're known to have started anywhere else. The ancient Iberians were the first to start exploiting the natural resources, and they were followed by Phoenicians, Romans, Greeks, and Visigoths. Even after it fell into disuse for several centuries, the Spanish government reopened the ancient mines in 1724 and began using them again. Unfortunately, all those years of mining activity have made the water highly acidic, so as great as it looks, you wouldn't want to dive in for a swim. Uluru, which is also known as Ayers Rock, is the most famous natural rock formation in the world, and is also internationally renowned as a symbol of Australia, which is where you'll find it. Some people like to call it the world's biggest monolith, but that isn't strictly true. Uluru is just the visible part of a whole range of rock formations that exist below the Australian desert. This enormous, cohesive slab of rock, which is 1,000 feet tall and has a 5.5-mile circumference, is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. The original native Australians treated Uluru as a sacred place for over 10,000 years. But the first detailed records we have of it come from European visitors, who first noticed it in 1872. The first European to investigate it closely was W.C. Goss, who was stunned to find that there were vast caves and waterfalls contained within pockets of rock that pepper the surface of the massive mount. Some of the caves contain ancient paintings, some of which tell the story of the creation myth, as believed by the original occupants of the land. Dubai is not a place that ever thinks in small terms. When it builds a tourist attraction, its natural instinct is to make it the largest and most opulent in the world. That's why there are in excess of 45 million flowers in the Dubai Miracle Garden. Stretched over the landscape, crawling up buildings, and even engulfing an old airplane, the flowers just seem to go on forever in every direction and feature every color of the rainbow. This garden is bigger than some villages. It covers over 750,000 square feet. Perhaps more impressive than that, though, is the fact that a garden like this is growing in one of the hottest places on Earth. Not only that, the plants are fed through the reuse of rainwater as opposed to chemical sprays. With so much space and so many flowers to play with, those who are responsible for the garden's design have rendered many different shapes, from love hearts to white igloos, and flowery tributes to some of the world's most famous buildings. Even with all this grandiosity, the government still plans to make it larger. Conventional wisdom tells us not to build major population centers next to enormous volcanoes. But if we listen to that advice, it wouldn't be so easy to reach Aogashima volcano from Tokyo in Japan. Granted, the island it sits on may be 200 miles from the mainland, but it still falls under the jurisdiction of Tokyo, meaning that the 170 brave souls who live on the island are Tokyo citizens. What makes Aogashima really special is the fact that it isn't just a single volcano. The entire island is, somewhat terrifyingly, one huge volcano. But within the island, is a second volcano that sits right at its center. These volcanoes have sprung from the remnants of at least 4 underwater volcanoes that came before them. We can't even say for sure that the volcanoes are inactive. They last went off during the 1780s and killed over half the people living on the island. If you have the courage to visit it by helicopter, you can cook eggs in the volcano's steam vents and relax in a sauna which is heated by the volcano itself. Snow Monkey Park in Japan is named for 2 very compelling reasons. Firstly, it's covered in snow. And secondly, it's full of monkeys. The nickname is a lot cuter than the location's real name, which is Jigokundani. Translated into English, it roughly means the Valley of Hell. We think the name is a little unfair. For a start, hell is supposed to be very hot. This is, however, a difficult landscape. It's freezing cold, snow completely covers it for 4 months out of every year, and the cliffs which line the valley are sharp, jagged, and over 2,500 feet tall at their peaks. It's not somewhere humans would want to live. But these Japanese macaques don't seem to mind it too much. They've even figured out that the hot springs are a great place to come and warm up or dry off when the weather is at its worst. Historically, the monkeys have always been well protected. They were once believed to be messengers for the gods of the mountains. If you're a fan of the movie Memoirs of a Geisha, you'll recognize this next location by sight alone. It's the Fushimi Inari Shrine, and it's been standing in Kyoto, Japan since the year 711. There are thousands of shrines dedicated to Inari, who is the god of rice, according to Shintoism. This is the most prestigious and famous of them all. According to Japanese myth, Inari's messenger animal was the fox, which explains why there are so many fox sculptures at the location. More famous than the foxes, though, are the torii gates, which stretch from the shrine all the way into the mountain behind the shrine, and the hiking trail which leads to it. The gates form a tunnel that extends out for 2.5 miles from the shrine. Each one of them was donated by an individual or business. That practice began not long after the shrine was built, and still continues to this day. So the trail is still getting longer. At present, it's said to take 2 hours to walk all the way through it. Waterfalls have to be vertical, else there would be nothing for the water to fall down. How then is it possible that Australia has a set of horizontal waterfalls? The answer is that they don't, but it looks like they do. Australia's naturally formed horizontal waterfalls are one of the world's greatest optical illusions. Found in Talbot Bay, the falls are really tidal waves crashing through the gaps between a pair of stone gorges. The resulting bursting and bubbling make them look exactly like waterfalls, but lying down. The waterfall effect lasts only as long as the tide is high. Once all the water has been forced through the gaps, the effect stops until the water pressure builds up again. To really appreciate the full effect of the illusion, you have a couple of options for taking a better look. You can either book a helicopter ride and fly high above them, or you can pay for a boat trip which takes you directly through the gap between the gorges and feel the spray of the water yourself. Beware though, the latter option isn't for the faint of heart. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.